Alrighty, sounds like we are all here. We're going to be here, so we will call this meeting to order. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Bajent.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Haney. Here. Nash.
Here.
Stead.
Here.
Willetts. 5 present, 1 absent.
Alrighty. First up, we have interim budget changes. Travis, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. So today we have IBCs for both fiscal 23 and for fiscal 2024. First up, we'll cover 2023. There's the first one is for an IT project for an enterprise service management software. This was budgeted as part of the 23 budget. It was in a different project, so we're reallocating those funds along with money in from two other sources for enterprise system enhancements, which is kind of why we budgeted this money set aside for projects like this one, as well as 65,000 that had been budgeted in community engagement 101 to look into and basically a customer sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name, constituent management software, which this service now, the enterprise service management will have that functionality once it's fully developed. So we're taking the 65,000 out of 101 because it won't be needed in CE and it'll be used to develop this kind of more all-encompassing software. Also in 23, we have Parks is requesting additional M&O and revenue budget. So M&O has gone over because of participation in programs and golf, Idaho Ice World, things like that. But by virtue of participation being up, revenues are also up. So this is net a budget neutral change. So we're increasing both the revenues and expenditures that we'd book. The third item is in the water renewal fund. It's taking some minor equipment dollars, repurposing that to major equipment, and then using those major equipment dollars along with a little bit of money that was already in that major equipment account and moving it to 2 specific MEQ items. A fish monitoring system, as well as the mobile laboratory van. So mostly this is just accounting to get budget authority in the right accounting accounts. And that's it for 23. And I apologize that I bumbled through the enterprise service enhancements. Were there any questions on those? Okay, quickly on 2024. Basically, it's 2 new projects. Both are public works. One is in 402. This to do 8th Street accessibility improvements. It's a project that'll be reimbursed by CCDC. It's a $2.5 million project. There's obviously a lot of components to it, but it's focused on improving just accessibility and livability of the area that is downtown near the library and Frank, that area, and just making improvements down there. Finally, there is another project budget for repairs in the municipal irrigation fund. So that would take $50,000 of fund balance to repair an irrigation line. Any questions on the 24 IBCs? All right, thank you very much.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I move approval of the interim budget changes for FY23 and FY24.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Nash.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thanks, Travis. Next up, we have Sheriff Clifford here. Welcome. The sheriff's joined us today to give a presentation and share some information on the Ada County Jail Infrastructure Project, the bond that they have placed on the ballot. How are you? I'm not sure if your mic is on. I can hear your voice, but I can't tell if it's Mike.
Okay.
Great
Thank
to have you
Mayor
here.
and Council.
Wel-
Thank you.
welcome.
Let me just get this pulled up real quick. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about jail bond today. And this information kind of spawns from a survey that we sent out to the public. We had a couple thousand people take the survey. And it clearly showed us that the public needs more information on what this is and what it means. And we saw people that were not in favor or didn't know if they were in favor. They just didn't have the information to be able to make a decision, or they had the wrong information. So that kind of spurs us to bring this to different cities and different outlets to give that information so people can make a good rational choice coming November 7th. So, I don't know if you've noticed growth in the county lately, if anybody has, but it's been a little bit. So we've grown about 38% in all of the county since 2010. And Compass says by about 2030, we will probably exceed 600,000 here in our county. To kind of paint the story of the jail, the original jail that sits at 7200 Barrister was built in 1977. It still is currently in use, that part of the jail. Population in the county was about 154,000. It was at 160 beds. The last time that Ada County went out to bond was for this 1995 jail addition. We had 256,000 at that time, and it increased the jail size to fit 560 beds. So I believe it was 1993 when we bonded for that. And that was any bond in Ada County. It was the last time we went out. 2003 saw more population increase, a small addition. That was a good size addition. That's the last time we had a good size addition. 2007, there was a small addition. And then 2013, when the population was 416, we had another small addition. Today, we're sitting at over 544,000. The jail currently has 1,116 beds. This timeline's important because the infrastructure from all of these additions to that big 1995 project is what runs the jail today. So hundreds of thousands more in population. The jail increases in beds basically due to statistics, and we still run that jail on the 1995 infrastructure. And we'll go over some of that. That's that 1977 infrastructure right there. I'm sorry, I was chewing gum when this was filmed. So here's the kitchen. We feed 4,000 meals a day. Diet feeds about 1,000 meals a day. That's per tube, what we can.
basically we have to look at it. So it's basically like a small. Thank you for taking the tour.
Well, now Sheriff, I don't know if I really need to come do a tour in person, given that we just got such a great tour so quickly.
Thank you for humoring me for that video.
That was great to see. Thank you.
So just real quick, I'm going to try and for the time we have, I'll try and run through this quickly because I'd love to answer your questions. So again, the jail kitchen, same story as the video. I started there 23 years ago. It's the same size kitchen. It was designed to cook 1,000 meals a day. We cook 4,000 meals a day out of it. That jail warehouse is 800 square feet. The new infrastructure plan calls for one that's 10,000 square feet. I don't know if you saw in the Sally Port, all of those things that are lined up. There are vehicle spaces that are taking up copy paper and toilet paper and some dried goods. We have to store those, all kinds of things in that Sally Port. And we also rent 7 different facilities where we have to send all of our goods out to be stored. So we're paying for all of that storage, and we'd like to have that bigger 10,000 square foot. It also increases our buying power because we know we can get more and store more. And then jail booking, again, same 1990s structure. We run a lot more people in and out of our facility on a daily basis, going to court, going to doctor's visits, things like that. And the ergonomics of trying to do that with the space we have built for 1995 is becoming a hindrance on our efficiency and safety for inmates and officers. One of the things that we saw for people that didn't support jail bond were stop locking people up for marijuana possession, housing them in your jail, stop housing shoplifters in your jail. And I'm here to tell you that those people don't exist in our jail. Since I've been here for over 2 decades, the population of the jail, and some of you heard me say this before, it has changed drastically. We now have programs that I'll go over that identify those people to get them out of our jail so that they are not taking up space, and they make room for this percentage. It's 86%. I think today it might have been 87%. People are in on a felony charge. So those are the folks that we need to house in the jail. We do about 11,000 bookings per year. Typically, it was 6% on this day. I don't know which day this was made, but it was 5% today. 5% of inmates are in there serving time. So basically, they're serving time on a misdemeanor. So it's very few individuals. Our average daily population is 1,005. The day we took this video was 970, even though that's still over our operational capacity. Like I said, we were ecstatic because today it's 1,011. It goes up, in the blink of an eye. And here you can see that photo of what happens when we run out of bed space and we have to have inmates that sleep on the floor here. We call them boats. They're a plastic cot basically that lays on the floor. So here are those programs that people don't even know that we do at the sheriff's office. And one of the things that makes us so much different than a police agency. We try for the last 15 years, we have been very innovative and kind of plowed the way a little bit in some of these programs that we run through the sheriff's office. We have alternative sentencing so that if you say you get a DUI, you get sentenced to a couple days in jail. Well, you can go and you can do SIL, pick up trash on the side of the road, or community service, or those types of things that keep you from having to spend time in the jail. There are a lot of different alternative sentencings that we do. We have a whole group that just manages those folks. We also have a community transition center. So this is similar to work release. So these folks can serve their time in our community transition center. They spend the night there, but they go to work during the day. But sometimes when they land, they don't even have a job. So we do job search for them. We help them write their resume and get a job. We also help them get their GED. And we also have other programming that we offer through educators that are based only in our community transition center. And then misdemeanor probation is another way we keep people from serving time in our jail. We have a very, well, the biggest in the state misdemeanor probation program. They hold people accountable, but they're really great at trying to get people through their program and serve their time outside the walls of the jail. And then pretrial release is something that benefits us because that's how you get your lower level misdemeanors out of the jail and monitored by the sheriff's office, whether it's through just office visits or ankle monitoring or anything like that, so that they're not spending time in the jail. Another thing that we do that's not on here, because we don't get to do it very often, is we'll do a thing we call the jail sweep, where we'll have the attorneys go and look, and let's say you have a gentleman that got an open container ticket on the green belt, and then he failed to appear, and he lands in our jail, and he's been sitting there for 3 days, and he's not going to go to court for another 6. Well, we identify those people and go, this guy's going to go to court and he's going to get 3 days of jail. So let's work with the prosecutor and the judge to just identify him and get him out. And I say that we don't do it that much anymore because we actually don't find that many people that are eligible for that anymore. Having that different population, we've had to change some of the programs that we've done in the past because we have people of a different caliber, if you will, that don't qualify for a lot of those programs, thus the increased population in the jail. I'm going to skip this one for time. So the proposed project, that's land that we have purchased behind the Ada County Jail, or between the jail and the connector. It is a new booking and intake area, kitchen, like I've already talked about, laundry. So that laundry area that you saw, 2,500 loads a month, is basically the same size when I started there long ago. A new housing pod. So we are increasing beds, 296 beds. And I'll get back to that in a second. A new transport center. So a more safe and secure area where we can take inmates, move them out in and out of the jail to go to all kinds of a myriad of things outside the walls of the jail. The new warehouse, which I've already talked about, and a new secure access for officers bringing people into the jail. So the bed space, that's something that catches people's eye. And I had somebody explain this to me, or just mention it to me. He had a really great analogy for it. The bed space we have now, where we house a big bulk of our inmates, is the 1995 dormitories that were built. We hold 100 or more people in there. They need uplift, they need maintenance, they need repair, but we don't have a way to do that because there's no place to move 100 some inmates. So if this popped up tomorrow, I don't have staffing right now that even would work that, but we would still utilize about 75% of that area, including the bed space, because I can now move people into another area of the jail to do repairs. So the analogy was, yeah, you do, okay, you're going to remodel your master bedroom. You just move into another bedroom in the house and you remodel it. Well, we don't have another bedroom in the house to move into, so we We don't remodel the master bedroom to make it so it's more livable. So that's a good way to look at that bed space. We think that the project should take us into 2040. And then we'll see what happens with our population from there. But we are hoping 2040 will be the target date to get us to there. Already talked about the land. The estimated average cost to the Ada County taxpayer will be $3.60 for $100,000 of taxable assessed value of your home. So your average Ada County resident will pay $15 a year, roughly, on the 20-year bond. So those are some of the big things of, hey, you're putting too many low-level offenders in jail, which we don't do anymore. You need more programs. We have a huge myriad of programs that we use to keep people out. And I didn't mention, so population of the jail was 1,011 today. The population of the people we supervise today is 2,112. So we supervise 2,112 people outside the walls of our jail and 1,011 inside the walls. So election day, November 7th. And if you have constituents or people out in the public want more information or they want to take the survey, we'd love to hear more from people in the survey. They can go to adajailproject.org. You can leave information there if you want us to email you or contact you. But adajailproject.org is the best place to go to get the best information right there on your computer. So I think that's all I have for now. I would love to open it up for questions.
Great, thank you, Sheriff.
Madam Mayor.
Yep.
I guess the obvious question is what happens in the next 10 years if you're not able to expand your facility and get these resources?
That is a great question. So I think what we do is, well, we'll have to maintain kind of a status quo for now, but I think we'll just see our jail population getting worse just because we've hit an unfortunate place where we'll keep innovating and increasing the programs we have that keep people out of the right people out of the jail. So that's one thing we'll do. We'll keep doing that, but I don't see us getting to a point where it helps keep those people from sleeping on the floor.
And forgive me, do you need a majority or 2/3 on November 7th?
Yeah, it's a super majority for the bond.
Madam Mayor.
Madam-
We'll go this way. Go ahead, Nash, and then I'll work my way down.
Sheriff Clifford, could you tell me how much square footage you're adding to the jail and maybe existing square footage if you have those numbers?
Let me look real quick. I don't know that it's on that schematic. I can't remember the exact square footage. See if it's on my little-
Okay.
Really tiny. Yes, it's going to be. We're adding 170. Let me pull the slide up. You might be able to read it on there.
61,000?
We're adding 61,000. I can't read it on this paper. 61,000 square foot.
It's like a 30% more.
And then it seems like there's been some concerns in the past with the quality of the sleeping situations for prisoners. I mean, that's probably the capacity issues that you've been talking about. I guess what risks do we run as far as any state or federal standards that might be imposed on the sleeping and other accommodations for the prisoners, the inmates? I guess my question is, I mean, are there concerns about not updating existing housing in this design and just adding new housing, just adding a new housing pod as it relates to whatever the sleeping and other accommodations are.
So let me clarify the question. So is the question, is there concern or what are the concerns of not adding additional beds?
I think more along the lines of, I have concerns about the sleeping and accommodations for inmates presently. I was hoping that this would update the sleeping accommodations for existing inmates in their housing situation. I would hope that the fact of adding additional beds will help improve those their circumstances. But I mean, could you speak to, are there federal standards we need to get to that we're not at? What are we looking for as far as housing accommodations for inmates?
It's a great question. So I have your question. So we run the risk, the Idaho Sheriff's Association inspects jails every year according to standards established, a statewide standard, which is also based on a federal standard. We run the risk of failing those inspections because the more bodies you have on the floor and the farther you are over operational capacity causes more problems. And so you run that risk of failure. When you run the risk of failure, you run the risk of litigation for housing conditions. That's one thing we hear from certain groups of people is they should all be sleeping on the floor and having eaten bread and water. And besides that not being humane, it's also not it's not an appropriate way to run a safe jail. The more people we have that sleep on the floor, the more acts of violence we have, inmate on inmate and inmate on deputy. And if you're one of those taxpayers that's only talking dollars, when Deputy A punches Deputy B in the nose, taxpayers pay for that medical bill one way or another. So the safety and security of the jail is the risk we run by not getting those people up off the floor and being able to manage our population in a little better way. So I can explain it a little bit better. Not saying that we need to build 200 so we can put 294 more people in there. But when you live in a dorm in the jail, you have a lot of privileges. That's where the most privileges are, right? TV, you get, I mean, they have a lot of things. You make coffee, you can socialize with other people, and you can do a lot more than other places in the jail. But there are places in the jail where we do have some bed space, but those are high risk inmates. And it's not, we'll just use the word fair. It's not fair to the inmate that qualifies to live in that dorm to put them in with someone that's high risk when they're not high risk. So that's why you'll see sometimes on our forward facing dashboard that there are places in the jail where there is bed space, but that's because they're 2-man cells and only one person can live in them because they can't live with other people because they will hurt them. So having more bed space allows us at least to divvy up that population in those dorms a little bit more and get those people off the floor. So hope that's not too long of an answer, but safety and security is the risk you run.
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Sheriff. This was very helpful. You started out the presentation talking a little bit about the survey results and how you, at least as I understood, felt that there was more education that needed to be done with respect to this. I'd just love to hear a little bit more about what is being done before November 7th in order to educate the population so that they can have an educated vote.
So the website we have up is adajail.org, or the adajailproject.org. That's one way we're doing that. And we're trying to kind of spread the word. Social media campaigns will be coming out to say, hey, here's the information, educate yourself. We have to be very careful. We can only give information. So that's one way we're doing that. Another way is kind of grassroots, like you see here right now, where I go talk to city councils, I talk to people, all kinds of groups out in the public to say, tell me what your questions are. Because I hope that everybody understands that people on multiple sides of this issue, even though they may be butting heads and disagreeing, they all are lacking information about what this really is. So the grassroots, I think, is really going to help us. Just trying to be really diverse in who we talk to and where we go. We will have, we'll be mailing out some information, but as you know, that's costly. So we'll be doing that. We're going to have a number of open houses coming up where people can come to the sheriff's office and ask us questions directly. And so you'll see probably a lot more promotions in the next week or so of, hey, here's how you get information. If you want to come to us, we'll be there. If you want us to send you something, we'll send it to you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, this is not totally, it's for my education, because you're captive. Is there a seasonal component to when our jail is full or not full? Are there times a year when it's busier?
There used to be, but as our population's grown, we've seen that kind of level out a little bit as far as, the ebbing and flowing. It doesn't seem to have as much of a predictable factor anymore, just because there are so many more people that live here that come and go out of the jail. We do see some people, quite honestly, sometimes we'll have kind of the homeless community that thinks they may have a warrant. They sometimes seek shelter in the jail. Not always, but they sometimes seek shelter. They know they're going to get 3 square meals a day that are mandatory caloric intake and all those types of things, shower, a bed, roof over their head. Now, we only see some of that. It's not overly common. But otherwise, it's very tough to predict anymore. It used to be summertime, it kind of filled up because people get a little nutty when it gets hot. But now we just see this constant in and out.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I guess I do have a quick comment. For Sheriff, great to see you.
It's good to see you.
Missed the cowboy hat, but good to see you.
Yeah,
I
I almost wore it.
haven't done as much work in the Ada County Jail, but quite a bit of work out at the Idaho Department of Corrections out at the prison. And one of the things that I notice is that when people misbehave, they sometimes end up staying in a little bit longer. And when things are going good, when there's good programs, hopefully they end up getting out a little bit faster. I think one of the things that would be helpful for me, both as a council member and as a voter, is kind of knowing about some of these programs, knowing about the humane way that folks, how we want to treat them. And I think an end goal of, if we can do that, it's going to be a better experience for folks where they will not be as agitated, not be as hot, not be as cramped, and hopefully get out of there a little bit faster. But thank you for the programs and highlighting that part. That was very helpful for me.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comment, because we also have a lot of programs that we run inside our jail. You see the sewing program; those are inmates that run that program, the laundry program, and the kitchen. So because we have a little more of a a coming to going population, unlike IDOC where you may be there a long time, our average length of stay is 90 days, which is skyrocketed since in the last 2 days from 30. But we're able to at least provide some skills to them through the sewing program in the kitchen, especially. And then we also have a whole jail education system that helps with programming, and inmates can sign up for that and do programming themselves. That community transition center, we just to help bed space, we put those programs in that community transition center just, I think, last year, because we saw, well, because our programs are pretty good, judges sentence inmates, well, you can get out, but you got to take this program, then you can get out on probation. Well, that also clogs up the programming system for those folks that are waiting trial and want to take them, because it's the people that are sentenced come in first. So we said, okay, let's hire more educators for the community transition center so that we can get those folks that are sentenced to take them. Let's take them and put them in the community transition center. Now these people don't have to stand in line as long while the people that are sentenced are taking the courses. So we're trying to be innovative in that way. I really appreciate the comment, because people don't realize that's happening inside our jail every day. I mean, a lot of people don't know where the jail even is. We tell them it's by the mall. They can't believe it. But we do a lot of things inside and outside the walls of this jail to try and keep people going to work and not losing, they need to pay their mortgages, they need to pay their bills, and they might have fines they need to pay. I mean, we need them to be able to be out and healthy, and we would rather they were out and healthy than in and healthy, honestly.
Sheriff, thanks so much for the overview. And I've got to say too, that in the times that I've talked with the sheriff about the diversion programs they have, it's when I see you light up the most. Because they're great programs, really great programs. And I think there's a lot there to be talking about and to be proud of, and really appreciate all the work that you've done in that space.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. I appreciate you having me here. If any of you have questions, you can reach out to me, reach out to the sheriff's office. We're a pretty open book, so whatever information you need, we got it for you.
Thank you.
All right. thank
Good to
so
see you.
much. Good to see you.
Have a great
a good day.
afternoon. All right, we are going to move into an update on the Lander Street Water Facility improvements. Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Just a Public Works bonanza now.
May I start, Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Jim Party. I'm the city engineer. Been with the city now for 20 years. I'm actually filling in today for Josh Baker, who is the program manager over at Lander Street. Josh is enjoying some well-deserved and earned vacation after wrapping up phase one, and he's got quite a task ahead of him with phase two as well. So we encouraged him to go and be free and go chase animals in the woods for a couple of days. Presentation agenda today is want to talk a little bit about our water renewal service investments, close out Lander phase one, kind of give some of the highlights there, talk about what's coming in Lander Street phase two, including kind of the delivery method, project driver, schedule, financial. Talk about some of the risk and mitigation steps we're taking as the construction market continues to be a challenge, and then the next steps. So water renewal services has quite a few upcoming investments, as you've all heard of over the last couple of years, and kind of started with the water renewal utility plan. So there's kind of four specific areas: the Lander Street Water Renewal Facility, Recycled Water Program, West Boise Water Renewal Facility, and the collection system. So these are all major, very important assets to the city that allows us to continue to kind of operate and run. And I just did want to pause here and thank the mayor and council for their support on these programs, going all the way back to the utility plan. And then here in the more recent years, these are big programs. They're complex. They take a lot of staff time, a lot of staff power. And we've made several requests for additional staff over the last couple of years, and you've supported that. And we greatly appreciate that. And that definitely leads to the success of these programs. And was kind of a component to the success of Lander Street phase one, and will continue to be for phase two and others. So thank you so much again for the support there. So today we're going to focus, even though the four programs, we're just focused about Lander Street Water Renewal Facility. So a map, and for those of you who aren't so familiar with the area, up in the right-hand area where it says a VMP entrance, that's Veterans Memorial Parkway. Down kind of to the bottom right-hand corner, that's the beautiful Boise River. State Street would be kind of to the left corner. We've got a great neighborhood that sits up there between us and State Street. And then the Willow Lane Sports Complex is just kind of downriver to us. So phase one, we like to kind of say we did the bookends of the plant. This facility was built in the 1950s. This has been a workhorse for the city for better part of 70 years. It has earned its value. I mean, and a little kudos to our operation and maintenance staff. They have continued to keep this thing running. We're gotten to the point to where we have exhausted the useful life of the system. But there again, really taking advantage of that investment, and now we're ready to kind of renew the investment again. So phase one, we did the bookends. We did the headworks. That's where the sewage comes in, and we screen it for kind of the larger material, and it sets it up for success through the rest of the facility. And then the back end of the plant, which is the phase one or phase one UV component, that was completed. That's where we do the disinfection before we send the water back to the river. I did want to highlight the VMP entrance as well up there in the right-hand corner. This project, again, because it's vicinity to the neighborhood, and Boise's got all these great little kind of hidden gem neighborhoods. I find them all the time. I've been here 25 years, and I'm always amazed at what I come across. And over here off of Lander Street, this is definitely one of them. It's kind of got a little bit of a rural feel right here in the middle of the city. The streets are narrow. They don't have curb, gutter, sidewalk. It's got a great feel to it. But we were doing a lot of outreach with the neighborhood, getting them, kind of letting them know what's coming. And we, there again, the staff out there are great neighbors. People come by and visit if they have questions. It's an open door. But they were concerned about the phase one and future phase projects, and really with the construction traffic to do something like this. There's a lot of traffic. I mean, you just think of the concrete trucks, the cranes, everything that's coming in and out. It's quite a bit. And they brought that to our attention, and they challenged us on this, and really said we needed to kind of figure out a better way to kind of put that undue pressure, take it off of the neighborhood, because that would have been a burden. And these projects, as you'll see later, I mean, this is phase one was 4 years, phase two is going to be 7 years. That's a long time to live with a lot of construction traffic. So they challenged us. We kind of worked with them, came up with ideas, and to their credit, by doing that, we ended up with a better project. And part of that was getting the Veterans Memorial Park entrance up there. That's where the construction traffic goes. It takes that burden off the neighborhood. And really from a resiliency standpoint for the facility, it's something we should have had. It's almost one of those, why didn't we think of that back then? So again, kind of really appreciate the neighborhood and really seeing a benefit of, getting input from all parties. So moving on to phase two. So we did the bookends of the plant for phase one. Phase two is now working on the internal part of the plant. This is going to be a challenge. We're basically building a plant while we're still operating a plant. So there's a lot of risk and a lot of challenges here. And the main part of the phase two is really adding the circles, the clarifiers, primary and secondary clarifiers. Again, those are being added. We'll get to the project drivers that'll kind of explain those. But as you can see, they're significant. It's hard to see on the photo, but if you stack those up between the concrete and the steel and the controls, that'd be building like a significant high rise in downtown. It's hard to tell when you just see a circle and you see it full of water. They're deep, they're structurally sound. There's a lot that goes into them. So that really is kind of the focus on phase two. Phase one, just to kind of wrap this one up, construction began in February of 2020. A month later, we had COVID. COVID brought a lot of challenges, a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, the supply chain, labor, just a lot going on there. It was, here we are launching one of our bigger projects in a while, and that hit, and we were very nervous about the success of it. We had an estimate of $65 million on February. I'm very proud to say, and really just want to recognize again, Josh Baker and our teammates, McIlvain, Jacobs, and Brown and Caldwell. We're closing that out. We're going to come in under $1 million. And I'm still just dumbfounded by that, just given everything that was thrown at this project. It was able to kind of weather those storms and come in under budget. And again, just again, recognizing Josh, and I kind of feel bad. I wish he was here because he definitely deserves the recognition, but we did deliver this project under a construction management general contractor kind of delivery method. Typically, we'll do design, bid, build, but on these more complicated, tricky projects, we've gone through that delivery method. And one of the reasons is because we can end up with results like this. And thank you, Mayor, for showing up for our ribbon cutting ceremony, or in our case, I guess I'll call it the pump push button ceremony, where we were able to fire up one of the influent pumps and send 1 million gallons of raw sewage through the plant. So thank you for being there. Well, now you know. So, moving on to phase two. So again, the delivery, we had such success with the CMGC, and the cities used this style of delivery in very other places, a lot of other places as well. Again, you don't do construction management general contracts, general contractor approach for every project, but like I mentioned, for very complex, expensive projects, they really are a good delivery method. We did go out for an RFQ process, so it's a competitive process where we, go out and invite people to kind of put together teams and put in proposals for it. And there's the city holds 2 contracts. One's with the design engineering services, and then one is with the CMGC. And then in those contracts, we have a pre-construction phase and then a construction phase. And as a result of that, again, these projects are long, complex. We break them into what we call guaranteed maximum price. So we deliver certain packages on it. So often you'll hear, GMP 1, GMP 2, GMP 3, those kind of things. And that's how we break them up. And that's partly why we're here today, because in the upcoming months, we'll have, or upcoming weeks, on consent agenda, there'll be GMP 1 and 2 for Lander Street Phase 2, and wanted to take this opportunity to let you know what those are about and answer any questions you may have. Interesting enough, we did get a couple proposals on this, and we were the original team that did phase 1, they came back together again, and established their team again and proposed on it as well. And they were the successful candidates. So we're excited about that. They came very strong to the RFQ process. There was no entitlements at all there. They were acting like they were brand new. They put on a very good proposal. They were great in the interviews, and their knowledge of the project and just understanding of the facility really, I think, is going to again lend us set us up for success for phase two. Phase two drivers, they often kind of come down to these. It's capacity, condition, and regulatory. The community is growing. So with this project, we will be adding a little bit of capacity out there to Lander Street. And just as a reminder, as always, capacity growth pays for growth. So in our fee structure, we have a way that when we add capacity, that growth is responsible for that. Condition, we're all kind of responsible for. The sewer fund is an enterprise fund. When you pay your sewer bill, there's a component that goes in there that helps kind of fund these types of things. And that'll help fund the replacement of a lot of those aging assets that are listed here. And there is a regulatory component as well. I'll talk a little bit more about financials here in a second. Schedule, what we're looking at again is a little bit unlike a lot of city projects. These last a long time. I already mentioned phase one was kind of a 4-year process. Here we are picking up in 22. We've already started the design and pre-construction phases. And this project will be around until the end of 2029. So 7 years of work, we're already in it. Through that time, we'll, as I mentioned, we'll see some GMPs come through council looking for approval. Talked about GMP 1 and 2 here in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll see GMP 3, which will really be getting into the heart of the plant and building the clarifiers I mentioned, and some other GMPs, forecasted ones as we go on. We did highlight the secondary clarifier milestone there in 26. The reason for that is that's when that additional capacity actually comes online. It's with the growth of the community and the economic activity and the industries that we see come in, it's important to us to ensure that that capacity is there, but it's also very important that we don't build it too early. So we don't want to invest too early. We want to make sure it's just in time. We monitor this and take it very seriously. We watch flow rates. We watch what's happening with like our friends over in Planning Development Services, see what's coming in and kind of focus on that. And we've got charts that we're constantly kind of watching and making sure that's the right time. So if things really picked up, we could theoretically advance it. If things slow down, I don't know in this case that we'd slow it down, but there is some ability to move it. But there again, our goal is to get it just in time. The financial side of it, expensive it's an expensive project. As I mentioned, if you stacked all those clarifiers up in the work out there, it'd be like building a huge high rise in downtown. Construction, we're looking at about 221 million, engineering services, 34 million. And then we've got other fees estimated at 10 million. So to add those up, we kind of get to the midpoint, $265 million worth over those 7 years. This is future value money. When you got a project long like this, we have to kind of forecast what that future value is going to be. And we also utilize kind of a classification system for estimates, class 5 through class 1, and it's done through the Association for Advancement of Cost Engineering. So it's kind of a nationally recognized way of doing things. And like a class 5, for example, would be you have very little design or definition around a project, and the variability there would be minus 50 to 100%. Here we've got quite a bit figured out. So we're at a class 2. Class 1 is basically you got the bid and you know what it's going to cost. So we're right there at that step. So we've got pretty good certainty around this price point. And as I mentioned, having the CM involved, they're very good at cost estimating. So they help us with that as well. So as of now, we're kind of planning on the 265, but 7 years is a long time. And, hopefully we'll come in close to that just as we did with phase 1. As I mentioned, the construction market continues to be a challenge. Proactive steps we're taking to manage that is all our project and programs carry a risk register. That's where we sit around. We figure out what could go wrong. What's the likelihood of it and what's the consequence of it? And then when we identify those, we also come up with mitigation strategies. So we're thinking about all those things well in advance and how to avoid those possible risks that come up on a project. As you all know, I'm sure you've heard about, a lot of the supply chain issues can continue to be a challenge. We're seeing real struggles in the electrical side of things. So we are pre-purchasing or very early purchasing electrical components to make sure that we don't get to a point to where we're ready to order a piece of equipment and find out in some cases, some of these items are 3 or 4 years out. So we're through the risk registered, we identified those and we'll be purchasing those pieces of equipment, and we may hold on to them. You know, they might be 2 or 3 years in advance of them going in, but that's kind of the new way of doing business now to ensure that you meet your deadlines. Mentioned the CMGC approach. Labor market continues to be a challenge. This is a way to really engage the subcontractors out there, help them understand the project. The old way of doing things is typically the contractors and subcontractors, they didn't learn about the project until the bid hit the streets. That's hard to do, especially on complex projects like this. So our CMs go out and they engage different trades. They make them understand of the projects. They build curiosity around them and build interest around them, and really helping with that early engagement. So that way, subcontractors and contractors, there's more work out there than there is kind of trade right now. They can start to pick and choose and decide what projects they want to do. And one of the nice things with the city projects is there is a lot of certainty around them. And I think we've got a good reputation in the contracting world. The CMGC also kind of allows for kind of streamlining some of the processes for the subcontractors. It allows them to focus on the work and the bids, and they'll take care of, the CM will take care of more of the administrative burden when it comes to like insurance and things like that. They do a lot of umbrella programs where, again, you can get a subcontractor who he just has to put together his bid and kind of work on that. And also our strategy often is to allow multiple opportunities for subcontractors. So we'll switch subcontractors through projects to allow to kind of almost kind of spread it around, get more people involved. And also allows for maybe some of the smaller subcontractors to get involved as well. And then one of the big things the CMGC's helps us with is forward-looking cost estimating to avoid those surprises. Traditionally, it seemed like when we did cost estimating, it was always looking backwards. You know, what's this going to cost? Well, we'll figure out the last 5 I built and I'll average that, and that's what it's going to cost. Can't do that anymore. So now the CMGCs are very good at knowing what's coming up. They know where the market volatility is. I didn't get that out correctly, but I think you know what I meant. But they like lumber, for example, if lumber's going up, they make us aware of that. We work that into it and we try to mitigate the problem. So our next steps, as I mentioned, Lander Street GMP 1 and 2, I believe it's on next week's consent agenda. You'll be seeing that. And then we'll have periodic Lander Street updates. And we'll be back here in a couple months to talk about West Boise as we begin to kick off that major program as well. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jim. That was a lot. You guys are doing great work and really appreciate all that's happening. Questions or comments?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I make a comment. The city's work on water treatment is actually what got me first interested in municipal process. So I'm always excited to hear what the department is up to, and hearing that it was under budget and it was improved with work with the neighborhood is really what the city should be striving for. So congratulations on a job well done on phase 1, and looking forward to updates on phase 2.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I was just going to say, I'm going to be surprised if you get a lot of questions on here. You always do such a good job at being thorough and giving us the information that we need in a really proactive way. So just appreciate all the work that went into it, and it really helps it when it comes onto a consent agenda. We know exactly what's going on there, especially on some of these bigger ticket items. So thanks for all the extra prep and the extra work that you always put into it on your team.
Thank you.
And was this first phase 1, was that covered by our WIFI loan?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I apologize. I should have talked about that in the financial. So phase 1 was not WIFIA funded.
Okay.
Phase
Phase
2
2 will be.
Yes, and actually all the other programs have a component of WIFIA. The 4 major programs will have a component in that.
Okay.
That's the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. It's basically a loan program with the EPA, solid, low interest rates, very predictable. And that is one of the tools we'll use to help finance these projects.
Great. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
I see you as well.
And now I see Steve Hubble getting up, so we'll hear from Steve. This item is on our agenda this evening, so this is preview. Many of you, well, some of you, I guess, have been along for the ride on this, but I'm super excited. We've got folks from Idaho Power here, our team that worked with this issue at the PUC. Thank you very much. And other members of the Public Works team, and of course, Steve Hubble, who leads our Climate Action Division, to talk about how we will be powering, with your approval, our airport and Lander Street water renewal facility with 100% clean electricity.
Thank you, Mayor. Great setup. I appreciate that. It's a really exciting day to be here today. This is a pretty significant, special, potential milestone for our climate action journey. And I want to acknowledge a really significant amount of work that's gone on behind the scenes for several years. I think we've been working on this close to 5 years now in some form or fashion. So there's a lot of smiles in the room as we get to our discussion today. Just a quick outline for this afternoon. We'll go over some background. We'll talk in detail about the renewable purchase agreement and then check in on some next steps. And I wanted to start our any kind of climate and energy presentation. It's good to check in on a couple definitions before we go through the content. We work with this content every day. We tend to switch words back and forth that might have the same meaning, but I think there's kind of some important distinctions to walk through here real quick. So the first one, electricity and energy. So we tend to use these terms interchangeably, colloquially, but for the purposes of today's discussion, we're talking about the context of how we power city buildings and facilities, or really any building and facility. And when we think about energy in that context, there's different sources of energy. So there's electricity, there's natural gas. In Boise, there's geothermal, for example. But specifically today, we're focused on the electricity portion of that energy. And then when we talk about electricity generation, we're referring to how Idaho Power produces electricity at their power plants and then subsequently delivers that energy, or excuse me, that electricity. See, I confused those two words already, to us as customers at our homes and businesses. Clean and renewable, for our purposes today, we're going to use those terms interchangeably. And in this case, we're talking about the source of electricity generation and primarily whether or not we use fossil fuels for that source. So for clean and renewable electricity, we're generally thinking about sources of generation like hydroelectric, like wind, and like solar energy. And we'll be specifically focusing on the solar energy part of that today. Electricity demand and usage, that's the amount of electricity needed to power the needs and usage at a building or facility. And then the Idaho Public Utilities Commission, just for reference, that's the regulatory body that regulates private utilities, in this context today, Idaho Power in our state. And then I also like to lead these presentations usually with just a reminder of the city's clean electricity and then climate goals. And we are specifically going to be focusing today on that 2030 100% clean electricity goal for city government and the impact on that. But as we work through, it's important to realize that the action that we're taking and the program that we're talking about is really setting us up for success through the remainder of those goals across that time continuum. And so Idaho Power generates electricity from a number of different sources. And you can see the graphic there on the right about where their sources of energy are. They fluctuate a little bit every year. So you can see what happened for 2022 there. And generally that's a mix of renewable and then also non-renewable sources, although they are working very hard to eliminate that non-renewable portion. Using the grocery store snack pack analogy, this is essentially the variety pack, if you will. So this is the predominant mix of electricity that all of us as customers are using currently. But we know through our climate and our clean energy planning that the city as a customer and also many residents and businesses want a different option. And essentially what they want is, instead of the variety pack, they want the option to purchase all clean electricity. And thankfully, Idaho Power, sorry, wasn't quite ready to advance there. And thankfully, Idaho Power and other utilities nationally have been working to deliver those programs out to customers. And Idaho Power's program, referred to as Clean Energy Your Way, was submitted for approval to the Public Utilities Commission about a year and a half ago and was subsequently approved in August. And the approval of that program enables them to work with the city and then other customers who wish to voluntarily purchase clean energy. The program specifically designed, and I think this is worth noting, to ensure that customers that wish to participate pay their way and that others who don't are unharmed or see no cost impact from that. And so the chart here on this slide gets into the specifics of how we use electricity at city facilities. And while we have hundreds of facilities and several hundreds of electricity accounts, we use the predominance of our electricity at 3 sites. Lander Street Water Renewal Facility, which you just heard a lot about, so that was timely. Also the West Boise Water Renewal Facility, that's our largest user, and then the airport terminal. Everything else is in that 44% blue bar on the right. Also for reference, as we get into the discussion, our average spend for Lander Street and the airport terminal is approximately $1.5 million every year, and total spend on electricity is about $5 million. We'll be focusing on Lander and the airport terminal for the rest of the discussion, so that's why those two are highlighted. And so what's proposed today is an agreement through Clean Energy Your Way between the city and Idaho Power to supply 100% clean electricity for the airport and Lander Street. The clean electricity is being generated from a newly operational solar facility known as Black Mesa, which is located near Glens Ferry in Elmore County. The city's portion of the Black Mesa project will produce enough electricity to match the average annual electricity usage at airport and Lander. This is a similar approach to what other cities and companies have done to make progress towards or achieve their clean electricity goals. Prior to the approval of Clean Electricity Your Way, Idaho Power was able to work directly with 2 of their largest customers, Micron Technologies and Meta, to develop similar agreements. The city will share the generation from Black Mesa with Micron, and our proposed agreement follows many of the same details that were already approved for Micron. And that's a photo of the Black Mesa site there. And Megan promises me it's not AI generated, even though it kind of looks like it a little bit. So the details of the agreement. So the agreement proposes a long-term contract between the city and Idaho Power, which would begin in September 2024 and expire in 2043. A long-term contract provides stability for Idaho Power, which allows them to share pricing benefits with the city. There are 2 key financial impacts from potential participation with the agreement. The first is the ongoing impact to monthly electricity bills. And it's important to point out before we talk about billing that there are some unique aspects of this potential agreement that may not be applicable to other agreements for the city or other customers. There are some unique particulars with Black Mesa that make this a little different potentially than others. This agreement changes our billing rate structure. So instead of all charges, it proposes a combination of charges and credits, some of which are variable, and those drive the long-term cost or saving projections. The data provided by Idaho Power indicates that the first 2 years of the agreement will be a premium when compared to standard electricity rates. And after year 3, and with being very conservative, bills will at worst be equivalent to the standard electricity rates, and potential projections show a high probability of long-term savings throughout the remaining 17 to 18 years of the agreement. The other financial impact is the requirement for a contingency fund. The contingency fund is required to address the city constraints on unfunded debts and to ensure requirements from the Public Utilities Commission to ensure that non-participating customers are unharmed. The contingency fund requires placing a total of $810,000 in an interest-bearing escrow account, which is fully refundable in 2 installments, one in 10 years and the second at the end of the contract term, so long that the city continues to participate over the life of the agreement. Funding for the contingency fund is contained in the FY24 budgets for the airport and water renewal. There's several benefits of participation. The first is the contract and some of those pricing elements that I talked about offer a hedge against increases to underlying electricity prices. And as I just mentioned, on a very conservative approach, we think this is cost neutral, but we think those significant savings are pretty likely. It also supports our goal to be 100% clean electricity by city government. And based on 2022 usage, it gets us about 26% of that progress ahead of schedule. And then additionally, along with the electricity, we are supplied with renewable energy credits, which provide the documentation that we need to make our clean energy claims. It's important to clarify that the agreement has no operational impacts on Lander Street and Airport. Obviously, those are both critical facilities where we need the power to work. All the infrastructure coming there and the power being delivered is unchanged. So there's no impacts there. And then finally, participation here would demonstrate leadership. It shows our community how residents and businesses could potentially join Clean Energy Your Way with future offerings and how they might meet their own needs to purchase clean electricity. And additionally, the agreement continues to solidify the relationship between the city and Idaho Power while providing an example of mutually beneficial arrangements that support climate action and innovation. And so our next steps, City Council actually took the first step. You might not have even known that you did it at the time, but we discreetly
Oh, they knew.
They knew. Okay, good. Thank you, Mayor. We discreetly placed a sole source procurement request on your consent agenda on September the 26th. And that's just a procurement formality that's required because Idaho Power is our only energy supplier. So we can only do this with them. So that step was approved. And then on your consent agenda this evening, there is the renewable purchase agreement for your consideration. And then it's important to point out that this is the first step in the process. So if council is to approve that agreement this evening, Idaho Power will subsequently submit it to the Idaho Public Utilities Commission, and they will formally review and consider the agreement over the course of this fall into next year sometime. And assuming they make their approval, this would go effective on September 1st, 2024. And that concludes my comments. I do want to take a second to just do some recognition here. While I had the opportunity to come up here and present from our staff, I want to recognize Will Gale and Ed Jewell. Will and Ed have done a huge amount of work behind the scenes over the last 18 months to get us here today. And I really want to make sure they get some recognition. And then also staff from Airport and Department of Finance Administration have been really helpful. And then in addition, we also have Megan Ronk and Allison Williams here today. They and their team at Idaho Power have also done a significant amount of work to help us get here, particularly over the course of the last 6 weeks or so during what I know is a very busy time, particularly for Allison and her team. So really appreciate that. I'll be glad to answer any questions. And if you have any questions for Idaho Power, I know Megan and Allison would as well.
Madam Mayor, I guess just a couple of things. One, congratulations, great job. We got a small presentation, a leadership meeting the other day and kind of walked out and I was like, I think we should have gave them a round of applause or something because it really is such a huge deal. And I hope that you all recognize how much everybody here appreciates it. I was excited to vote for on the consent agenda in September. Happy to vote for it again tonight. And just appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. I know there's been tons and tons of meetings, but this is, I think, the progress we really want to see. So thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, my feelings are the same as Council President Halliburton's. This is like, nothing like this just happens. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of Excel spreadsheets and number crunching and deal making in territory that keeps changing and things keep moving. And it's a sign of tenacity that you're here. So we're going to vote on it and say yes, but we're not going to take any credit. Like, really good job, everybody. It's a huge team, I'm sure, and we're very grateful.
I might take a little credit.
Anything else? I just want to close this out with a big thank you to everybody. I mean, this really was, when we set goals of making sure that we're a clean city for everyone, and that includes that we are able to power our city government buildings with a clean electricity, 100% clean electricity by 2030. This gets us ahead of schedule, and I know we will beat those goals. And it's because of the commitment of our staff, the commitment to partnership with Idaho Power, and so many people that have been involved along the way in doing this, including our residents who really want us to lead and recognize that this will save us money in the long run by purchasing power at rates determined today for the next 20 years, and it's clean power. And so just, it's a really exciting move. And it was a result of hard work by the Public Works team, by our legal team that's still in the middle of it, by Idaho Power, great partnership and collaboration where even folks from my office and our government affairs work team had to jump in to help us. And then partnership with Micron, who at the same time that they were looking at investing here, knew that they too needed a clean source of electricity. And so working together to support Idaho Power's desire to build this new program to serve their customers. So just lots of appreciation all around and excitement for what this means in the long run, because as Steve Burgo said yesterday at the airport, now we have clean electricity that will save us money in the long run. It's a great hedge against climate and creates resiliency for our residents. And that's why we're electrifying our buildings and electrifying our fleet, because of the power source, the electrical power source that we have. And I also am just going to encourage council members, if you are sitting on the airport commission or see Rebecca, ask her what she and her team are doing out at the airport, because they are doing so much in this bucket of work of resiliency and preparing an airport for the future. And it was great to see the number of airlines that were at the announcement yesterday as well, because this helps them meet their goals. And so all around, there's a recognition that this is important for our health, for long-term resiliency, as well as for the partners that we're working with in so many spaces. So thank you all very much. Excited to see how we close the gap on our West Boise Renewal Facility Center. And I just butchered those words. And then the rest of the power source too, but I'm confident that you all will help us figure out and will figure out how to meet these goals ahead of schedule as we're on track to do. Thank you. And with that, we've got a slightly longer break than expected. We will be back here at 6.